Anytime I talk to someone opening a hotel, I tell them to call Cintas. I've worked with them for years, and they're always leading the industry forward. And now, they're doing it again with Design Collective by Cintas. Gone are the days of all hotel employees looking exactly the same in outdated, mandated uniforms. Now, award-winning fashion designers at Design Collective by Cintas develop modern employee wardrobe collections. Retaining staff is about choice, and allowing employees to select garments they want is part of that choice. Employees love expressing their authentic selves, and now they can do it through apparel while their apparel stays on brand. A well-dressed team member is happier and more likely to deliver exceptional service while enhancing the overall hotel or casino experience. There is no other wardrobe collection like Design Collective. Their experience in design, along with their ability to actually implement the program, makes them the only company I'll call when it comes to employee apparel, period. Call them at 1-800-864-3676 or online at cintas.com/Design Collective.
It's checking in with Anthony and Glenn, teaching you to be the hotelier that you wanna be. It's checking in with Anthony and Glenn.
Anthony!
Logos.
So absolutely critical and important. You know how much I love my no vacancy logo and our checking in logo because it connotes so much to an audience, right?
And you know how much I love my logo?
Yes.
I was sitting in this chair.
Yes.
Right here.
Right here?
When I approved my logo.
Where are we, Anthony?
You tell me. We're alternatives in New York City. And who are we sitting with?
Julie, I don't even know your last name.
Julie Koch-Beinke.
Yeah, I think I'm going in so blind into this particular interview, which is a little scary, but also kind of exciting. So I think it's going to open us up to some fun questions. So this is a branding company here, right?
Absolutely. When I was kind of trying to figure out, hey, I'm on TV. I was a hotel general manager. Who am I? I don't know who I am. Like, people thought they knew who I was, and I thought I knew who I was. I was like, who am I? So my friend, who we just interviewed,
the lovely, talented Samantha Brown. If you haven't checked out that episode, be sure to download it now.
So I called her up. I had just met her, and I was like, who do you use for branding? And she said, this incredible company, Alternatives. And I was like, well, thank you very much. And I walked over here and met Alternatives, and here we are.
Also a great name for a weed shop in California if this doesn't work out.
And there we have it.
Well, welcome aboard. I'm so excited that we're going to get to speak with you today because branding is so essential to absolutely everything we do. And Anthony does a whole speech about personal branding. I'm extremely focused on personal branding because each one of us as individuals are our own personal brand. But companies, in order to connect better with the end user, the consumers out there, they have to have a clear sense of who they are that's easily transmitted to the audience. So for something that seems pretty straightforward and simple, it's really an awfully complicated job, and I think you do an absolutely terrific, amazing job at it.
Well, thank you.
Jack Daniel's Cake. Tell me about that.
That is a brand extension. So Jack Daniel's, as you know, is an amazing brand. And someone that we know, a client of ours who makes these alcohol cakes, came to us to extend the brand to other places.
Right, and brand extensions are typically leveraging the power of a specific brand and then having offshoots of it. So it gives the customer, the consumer, a quicker understanding of what that is and how it relates to their lifestyle.
And new ways to enjoy something.
Right.
And I'm just standing here, they're sitting here, and I saw the logo in the box of Jack Daniel's Cake, so it just came to my mind, because that's the shiny ball in the room. Am I allowed to have any of that?
Of course.
Really? I can take one off the shelf and eat it right
Sure.
now? Are you serious?
Yeah.
You keep
he's
going.
going to go. All right. I'm going to. All right. So you work with a lot of great companies. I see Jeep, American Red Cross. I love that you did it looks like a white sneaker for them, because I think that's synonymous with like nursing and health and all of that kind of stuff.
Exactly. It was footwear for healthcare professionals.
Right. All right. So let's just get into what branding is to you. Why is it so important for people today?
Well, it's really about communication, and everyone wants to get to know one another. Everyone wants transparency. They really want to see what something's about so they can understand it and connect with it, because if I don't know you, I can't connect with you. So it's the same for people, for brands, and all of that.
Right. So how does it work? I'm sniffing cake. Sorry. You could smell the whiskey coming off of it. It's a Tennessee whiskey cake, pecan flavored.
How drunk will I get if I eat this whole thing?
You won't.
You won't.
I won't?
No.
Oh.
The alcohol probably comes off in the cooking process.
Exactly.
Wah, wah.
I just
That being said, it looks like you've got some other alcohol brands right next to it. So, Anthony, maybe with every bite of cake that you take, you could do a shot, and then we'll see. I'd like to play a little game that anytime we use the word experience, somebody's got to take a shot. So this might be the perfect opportunity for us to do that, because
Get me drunk. I'm good.
branding is really all about the experience the customer is going to get, right? So how does it come together? We could use Jack Daniels as an example, or one of the liquor brands, or Jeep, or something like that. To you, how does it all work? How does it all come together? What is the job that you really actually do?
What we do a lot of is listening. Mm-hmm. So we listen to, well, for example, Anthony, when he came in to us and said, "Hey, I want to brand myself. I want to have an identity that's beyond the shows that I've done and everything else." It's a matter of listening to him, determining what makes Anthony Anthony. What's the quintessential things that make him who he is, and pulling those things out and actually verbalizing them and creating a visual vocabulary around that and a verbal vocabulary around that, that everyone will recognize as him and know it's true.
So what is Anthony Melchiorri, the brand?
Oh, he's a lot of things. He's about excellence. Mm-hmm. He's about, he has certain superpowers, I would say.
You know, one of the things they did a brand book, right? Mm-hmm. And they literally went through a lot. There's 10 bullet points of who I am and what I am. And when I read them, and I really had nothing to do with them outside of just talking, because that's what I do. And they were able to really put me all together. And I was like, oh, that's who I am. And then, I don't remember if you remember the logo day, but I do, because it was really important in my life. And if I open a hotel, or if I open up a restaurant, or open up a dry cleaner, or I do a podcast, or I have a company called Hospitality Success, I want to be able to have my brand be able to fit all of those businesses. And so the logo is obviously really important to that. And if I remember the story right, and correct me if I'm wrong, there were 10 logos or something like that.
Something like that, sure.
And I asked everybody in the room, there was like maybe 5 of us in the room.
Uh-huh.
I said, please rank the logos. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Do you remember the logo we picked, what number it was ranked out of 10? 1 being the best, 10 being the worst?
I think it was the best.
No.
It wasn't.
It was 10.
It was the last one.
It was the last one.
So why?
So you know how I think about upside down thinking?
Right.
Like, okay, I want to know. I don't want to. If you and I, or all three of us, have a problem to solve, you're probably all going to think about the same solutions quickly first and get those out of the way. I don't do that. I drop to the bottom, because those are you're going to spend time there. I'm going to go to the bottom. So I wanted to know why we didn't pick this one.
Right.
Do you remember that?
Vaguely.
Okay. And we got to it, maybe number 8, but it was at the bottom. It was definitely not at the top. That I can assure you. And one of the things we realized is if we put it on wallpaper, we put it on a tie.
Put what? The
logo.
The phrase Anthony Bottom, straight to the Anthony Melchiorri, straight to the bottom.
See, that's him trying to be funny. It never works.
It works all the time.
No, the tagline is live up.
Live up.
Right. And which I think you came up with. And the logo fits anything. So if you see my business card, on the back of my business card, it looks like wallpaper of my business card. And if I run a 5-star hotel or I run a 3-star hotel, it translates. And it looks a little bit, 5-star hotel-y, but it can also be put on really anything you want. And the reason I love the tagline Live Up is because if I have a hotel and I have a concierge floor, People call it the concierge floor. I want to call it the live up floor. And it's not live up, go to Monaco and get drunk. It's live up, meaning live up to your guest expectations, live up to the hotel expectations, live up to your own expectations. So that's where I started to learn who I was.
I think that's fascinating that you needed to learn who you were as opposed to having them translate it into something else.
Well, let me say it differently. I realized what the essence of me, what were people buying?
But you didn't have the visual and emotional vocabulary in order to share that adequately, right?
I didn't understand, and I still don't completely, like what people, like if you buy me for a keynote, or you buy me for a TV show, or whatever it is that my business I bring to the table, who am I? And through alternatives, I realized authenticity. They had keywords, and they broke down my brand, and authenticity was really strong. And that's when I started to really lean into that. Absolutely.
And I think authenticity is important for your brand, but it's important for every brand too. Because if you're not true to who you are, you won't succeed.
Right, and we hear that all the time in the hotel industry vocabulary now. It's the whole sense of authenticity. People have become immune to a lot of traditional marketing messages and are bombarded with so many different things all the day. The one thing that I think cuts through that clutter is the true sense of authenticity, being your actual you. And we definitely talk a lot about that. So how do you cut through all of that BS in order to determine what is authentic about Anthony as a person or a particular product?
Well, I think it is, again, it's listening and paying attention and really trying to find the essence of that person. I mean, in Anthony's case, it's very easy to see who he is. It's a little harder to articulate that. So I think how do you articulate it in a way that people, his brand fans, will see it and understand him better. So I think anything we can do to help them understand more and understand better is part of what we're trying to do.
So how do you turn him into a logo that connotes him through that imagery?
The logo is representative of his core values.
Right.
And his values are excellence. His values are getting it done. It's something that looks proactive. So it's all of those things.
Right. It's amazing to me that you can be so scientific about it and create something that has such an emotional type of reaction.
And that's exactly what it is. It's all about creating that emotional connection. And it is trying to pull out what those key elements of that are. So it's a little bit psychological.
And what was interesting is what was important to me was I don't know if I was going to have luggage or linen or whatever, and we're working on all those things. And if my hotel that I almost bought out Long Island, if that was going to happen. So I don't know how long it's going to take to have tangible things with my name on it. But I said a business card I'm going to need for the rest of my life. I would say at least once a week, more than that. When I hand out my business card, people say, "Wow, I've never seen a business card like this." And it was a young lady, Miss Johnson, who owns
Salamander Resort.
Salamander Resorts.
We're talking about Sheila Johnson.
Sheila Johnson. She looked at my card and she said, "Wow, this is maybe the nicest card I've ever seen." And that is from a woman who's worth over $1 billion, knows, as I say, bought it, sold it, invented it. And this business card stopped her for a second, and she took a moment to notice my business card. So it was really important to me. So all that effort we put into it, when you stop someone like that and they say, "Wow, this is serious," you know you did it.
Right. And that is so important because, again, we are hearing so many things. If you can break through and get people to remember that business card, especially if you're a professional out there in the working world, it's so quintessentially important to your overall vitality in your career because we get so many cards. I can't tell you how many cards I get at every single event I go to. I'm at like 25, 30 different events a year. I come home. Every single time I'm like, I'm totally going to remember this guy. No problem. I get home, it goes to the pile. I forget about it. But those moments that I have where you have that distinct connection with someone based on the logo or the card are few and far between, which is why it's so important to understand what your personal brand is and have it reflect through all of that stuff.
You know how many times people say to me, "I'm not going to throw this card out"?
Yes.
Because you can't. It seems too expensive and it seems too substantial. You're like, "I'm not throwing this out."
Right. Yeah. And you literally can. I threw it in the trash once, jump right back out, run on my desk.
Wow, that worked.
Yeah,
huh? Hey, Julie,
amazing.
Congratulations. So, first of all, and I'd like you to talk about some of the brands you've worked with, but I am, say, a brand, and you can name one that you've worked with, that had a reputation And then after a long time, it was on the shelf for a really long time, and it just got boring, and maybe it got sold to someone else. I remember Fruit of the Loom comes to mind. I wish I had $3 million because, believe it or not, Fruit of the Loom was being sold for like $3 million 25 years ago. Like it was
Did it come with the fruit costumes?
It did, and I actually have one. And so at the time, I wish I had money to buy it because I think that's such an iconic brand. And now they've turned it around. Same thing with Harley Davidson. And so throughout and I even like when Domino's said, we suck, we're going to suck less tomorrow.
Yep.
And
Right.
I mean, I just love, there's nothing that gets me more excited, and that's what I do for a living, right? Turn around businesses, is seeing brands, iconic brands be turned around. So give us an example of a brand that you've worked on that needed your tender loving care. And again, you don't have to name them, but just tell me the process of what you go through when you guys take on something like that.
Well, I think one of the things that we do is a brand is not just the brand, it's a relationship. So it's the brand fans and the brand. So the two have to work together because if there's no match, then you're alone and you have no followers. So I think one of the things is we do a lot of research into who the brand fans are or who they might potentially be. And what's the best fit? Like, where's the white space? What makes this relationship different, better? Why do you want to have this relationship? So it's a little bit like dating in that sense, or having a relationship with friends or family. You either want to be in it or you don't.
Right, like you think of Fish. You're a big Fish fan. Right. I have no idea who they are. But like you would, if they said we're going to the moon and we're going to sell a ticket for $1,000 for a front row, you're buying three of them.
Deal.
You're buying three of them.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's
not included, unfortunately.
Right, but that's real serious brand loyalty.
Right.
You know, I think of what's his name, Margaritaville.
Jimmy
Buffett. Same thing.
Well,
amazing.
Jimmy Buffett and Margaritaville is one of the most incredible branding stories that I've ever seen. Now, I love the brand and respect the brand, but that brand doesn't necessarily connect to me because he just established I'm more of the hippie jam band guy. I'm not a yacht rock kind of guy, right? But they understand what their brand is, and every single time they interact with the customers, they know fully what that is, whether it be the original musician, whether it be his books, whether it be to all the line extensions that he has now, from all the resorts to the restaurants to the beer to the pool floats.
Yeah.
And I could go on and on and on. It's all quintessentially Jimmy Buffett, and that's really what you have to get to the bottom of.
And we actually worked with Margaritaville recently. So
So do you know Tamara?
Yes. Yes, that's who we worked with.
Oh, that's excellent.
Out of Dallas.
Yeah.
What did you do for them? Can you say?
We actually worked on kind of reining in the brand because they have so many properties
right.
and so many extensions. I mean, it's everything from in the frozen food aisle to the alcohol aisle.
They have Caribbean jerk shrimp that you could buy in the frozen food aisle.
Exactly. And they have resorts and they have an airline. Yeah. So they have pretty much everything you can think about.
I think it's a charter.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Okay.
They have retirement communities.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
7,000.
So how do you go about, the fishnet to bring it all in?
Yeah. So what had happened is they had all these different licensees that were working with the branding and kind of applying it in ways that they felt were right for their market. And maybe they were right for their market, but they were kind of losing focus as a brand. So we developed kind of a systematic logo approach where things could be added or taken away and built upon, but it was still one overarching brand.
Right, so that way you would understand that it's all part of the Margarita family, but you would have visual cues that would say, oh, this is for this element of
exactly.
it.
So it could compete in that market. It could
right.
compete in the, beverage market, but it could also compete in the hospitality market.
And I'm so fortunate because I'm sitting here and this company is my marketing company, and they've been on the show how many times? 4 times?
Yeah, something like that.
4 times. And they keep picking up the phone.
Maybe
when I
more.
call. I don't know why. And Jack Daniels, right? Margaritaville, and many, many other brands. I think 7-Up and Dr. Pepper and so many, Jeep and Red Cross and so many other brands you've worked with, and little Anthony Melchiorri.
Yeah.
It's like I'm working with the best. And I think that's part of a brand too. I think if you want to be authentic and you really want to be true to who you are, you've got to realize you don't know everything. And when you work with people to protect yourself and to protect your brand, you better work with the best. That's either hiring someone, if you hire somebody to produce, or just us working together,
right.
making sure I have a real guy that knows how to do this. or would it be a brand? I don't want to go with someone that's maybe less expensive. Although it would have been nice.
Yeah, of course.
But I know when I got this card, like, this is it, man. This is my business card to the day I die, and anything that's an offshoot of this will be the base for it, and that maybe it's a little bit more expensive, but the value of that is so important. And I think and I was so authentic to myself. I don't want paying for something as long as I'm getting the best. I don't want to be with number 2. I always want to be with number 1.
Thanks, Anthony.
You're welcome. So the process of going through a company, I mean, how much brain damage is that?
You really have to. It's funny because my partner Mark always says it's like being an actor. You really have to play the role. You have to get into the head of the company that you're working with, or the brand, or the person, and you have to put yourself in their shoes and really, really understand how they walk, talk, eat, sleep, everything about them.
Yeah, and one of the things about you and Mark is he's very excitable. Matter of fact, I'm almost glad he's not on this podcast because, like, it would be like 2 idiots falling off the walls, bouncing off the walls, and I
wouldn't get a word in.
Right, and you're a lot more subtle, and you think things through. Where Mark is very emotional, and he thinks things through. He's a very smart guy, but like it's a great combination.
Thank you. Yeah, it's definitely we're different personalities. We're our own brands.
Yeah, 100%. So tell me a company that you've had challenges with that's been really difficult.
Well, one thing you kind of mentioned before was a company that needed to be recreated or brought back, and one that we worked on a few years back was LA Gear.
That's the one I was thinking about,
which was really interesting. And that was a situation where the brand had been like number 1 in the 80s. It was top selling brand.
Do you remember it?
I do remember, and it's funny because the second you say LA Gear, the first inclination that I have is 1980s outdated.
1980s outdated, yes, absolutely.
I think it Chips for some reason. Remember that show, Chips?
Come on, who didn't have an Eric Estrada poster on their wall?
Yeah, it's kind of the same time frame. But anyway, so they the company had issues, went out of business, someone else bought it. They were starting to introduce product in footwear, but not really, doing anything that much. And they were like, we need to figure out where we are and what we need to do to be able to expand. So we actually worked on repositioning them for licensing, so to expand the brand into other categories, in activewear and other things. But the first thing we did was took a look at what the brand represented before, like where it had been and what it meant to people. And then we did some online research and some surveys and a lot of just digging around to find out what was still relevant and what wasn't. And we found out some things like a lot of the responses said people thought of it as cheap. So we thought, let's just reposition that and turn it to inexpensive or a good value. Right. So there were all these core values in the brand, some really, really good ones that people could relate to and the things that people remembered about the brand, there were a few negatives, but they remembered some good things too, and some of them were misremembered. They remembered things that didn't actually exist, but that they thought existed. Right. So those were great things to take advantage of.
That's typical as well, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, we tend to do that. So
give me an example of something they misremembered.
I'm trying to think on this one.
That was Mr. T's favorite workout shoes. Something like that.
Oh.
No, I'm trying to remember now what it was.
It probably were. Okay, so
I pity the fool that doesn't get LA Gear.
I can't remember.
But I remember you telling me about LA Gear, and what did LA start to represent?
Well, that was an interesting thing too. We found out through research, people really weren't that turned on about the idea of it being from Los Angeles. That really wasn't top of mind today with this kind of fitness thing. So we actually brought new meaning into the brand and kind of used a tagline, live active. And
oh, interesting. So you don't actually have to change the name. You create a different connotation to it so it can kind of play both sides.
Exactly. Building new meaning into the brand.
Oh, that's
to kind of reposition it that way. And that seemed to be right on for people.
It's better than going with LA Gear, the perfect shoe to sit in traffic.
And no one walks in LA. So
once you said live active to me, like that was when I knew. I was like, these people are brilliant. It's like, because first of all, LA Gear, you can even reintroduce it as Live Active, and to me, it could have always been Live Active, and I just thought maybe it was LA Gear meaning Los Angeles, but maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was always Live Active, and you're just reintroducing it to me.
Yeah, and then you're just thinking, oh, wow, I didn't know that, but I can relate to that. I like that in a brand.
Yeah, but one of the things I find remarkable about your company is you think hard and you think long and you process information at a very slow and very thoughtful place, and then it just kind of comes to you like it's almost a feeling. And so tell about like that work. Why are you doing the work? Do you start breathing it and feeling it? And
well, I think you learn as much. First of all, you learn as much as you can about the brand, the customer, the people, and anyone involved who might relate to it. And then once you have that knowledge, then you just open the door and let everything in. Like, what are the possibilities? And I think you have to be super, super open-minded. You can't go in with an attitude. You can't immediately, when you say sometimes I sit and think and contemplate, but I have to approach it that way. I can't walk in the door with an idea already.
Yeah, and that's fascinating to me because most people want to just want a client and they just keep moving, get as many clients as they want. You're more of and I hate the word boutique, but boutique shop where you're really controlling and really involved with every single detail.
Well, you have a process in terms of how you look at things and how you do things, but you can't have a process to the point where you do everything the same for everyone because everyone's not the same. So we really try hard to look at every brand for exactly what it is and not push it and force it into some kind of a process that may not fit it.
So tell me about the world of branding today as opposed to when you grew up in this company, in this business.
That was going to be my next question.
Because everybody has a brand. Everybody wants to be the Kardashians. Everybody wants to sell their company, 51% of their company for $600 million like Kylie Jenner. What are you seeing with brands today?
It's really crazy because we started our business back in the 80s, so we've been doing this a long time. And we started off as with the idea that we wanted to bring everything together for a brand. My background was in graphic design and marketing. Mark's was in industrial design, so product design. So we really thought, we can kind of materialize a brand across all types of media in 3 dimensions, in the product itself. So we always want in interior design, at retail, we always wanted to bring all those elements together and make them cohesive. So we started out in that way, but no one was talking about branding at that point
right.
in that way. So for us, we kind of branding came to us. I mean, we were always doing this, and this big proliferation of people wanting it and talking about it has just kind of creeped up.
Well, it's also, I think there's also a sense of, since the 1980s in particular, branding has become so important and customers' relationships with branding is changing because there's been a massive influx in the quantity of different types of products. So where it used to be the 1 or 2 types of products in each category, there can now literally be hundreds, right? It used to just be Tabasco sauce. Now there's 1,000 different hot sauces. So branding is an essential element, again, to cut through and create a more personalized relationship with the customer. So how has that changed the way that you are informed on how you do your job over the last 35 years?
Yeah,
or so?
It makes it, it's very, very competitive, but it also makes it more important to make that match, that relationship that we were talking about before. I think that relationship is easier almost now in these niche markets because you're not trying to appeal to so many people.
Right.
You're actually finding your group, your kind of your people, exactly. So I think in that sense, maybe it's not as big a group as it was before, but it can be more aligned,
and people will be more rapidly loyal.
Absolutely, absolutely.
The word of the day is authenticity. I find it so ridiculous that we're now reinventing a word that should never have gone away. You're like, authenticity? Oh, yes, you have to be authentic so people follow you. Really?
It should be without question.
It's really? Okay, thank you. I'm glad I got that memo when I was 1.
Right. But I guess I could make a counterpoint to that people used to really be into theming, for example, because they felt that it set the stage for something. But there's a certain artifice to that I think wore off consumer desire for that and wanted people to search below that to find something that was more real. And I think that might be where the authenticity thing came from, as a direct boomerang to the fakeness that we had going on in the 1990s.
Well, I think this idea of selling kind of got away from authenticity because you're selling.
Right.
But now it's not selling, it's finding.
Right.
Oh, wow. Talk about that. What's the difference?
That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are looking for things,
Right.
and people need to find them more organically than they did in the past. So you have to give them a way to find.
So when they have that sense of discovery, they're more apt for the messaging that goes around it because they feel they're a part of it as opposed to somebody being told they should be a part of it.
People are curating their own lives, and they're curating and building their own brand. It's not about your brand, it's about theirs.
Right.
And everything that touches their life becomes a part of their personal brand.
That. Yeah.
So that's really important.
Yeah, I never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
See, we learn something new every day.
I know. It's really interesting. I love this. I love this branding stuff. Before we wrap up, anything else that we need to know about branding and why it's so important and why folks out there in particular should be thinking about not just the brands that they want to interact, but how they're perceived as a brand themselves?
Great question.
I think the biggest thing about branding is it's about communication. So, and it's communicating who you are, what you want to be, who you want to be associated with. So it's really about communication. And I think everyone wants to know. Everyone wants to...
Right. And when you say communication, you don't just mean the words. You mean like clothes people wear, the way that they hold themselves, the way that they, even the words that they probably use to communicate.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's visual and verbal. It's everything. It's the way, exactly, the way you move, everything you do.
Right.
I mean, one thing, we actually also do work in branding for the IRS, which is really crazy and interesting, to try to help them communicate. And that is almost the biggest challenge because their audience is everyone. So
including the people
there's no
branding
niche.
them, so they better be nice.
So it's interesting.
How do you brand the IRS? That must be the hardest branding. That must be the hardest job in the world. How do you brand the IRS?
I mean, we worked on. Actually, it was a situation that was consolidation of logos and branding, similarly to Margaritaville, where it had become diffused and was inconsistent. So that was the first way that we started consulting with them and their in-house design team. And now we work with them on communication in a lot of different ways. So,
very interesting.
Yeah, I think so. I had a good question, and I totally forgot.
Because I interrupted you, I apologize.
No, you didn't interrupt me. You were carrying this conversation, which I totally appreciate, Anthony.
Now, when you're dealing with these big brands and these big companies, before I ask you that question, you do a great job listening, and you do a great job. You've never, like, there's times where I didn't, I said, I'm not really into that. I'm not into this, or whether it be for the show or whether it be for my own brand. Like, let's try that again, and you never, ever get defensive. Ever. And, that's a big trigger point for me. Like, I'm just giving you, I'm a direct guy. I'm just giving you information. It's like, if you're going to come at me defensive, I'm probably going to, get pissed off. Like, it's too much effort for me to kind of deal with your feelings and emotions. It's like, dude, I'm a client. Just deal with it. And you guys do with, as a matter of fact, you do it so well that I'm probably even more direct than I probably should be. Because you're so good at not being defensive.
Thanks. We're developing your brand for you. So it's not about, I want to love the brand that we're developing for you. But if you don't feel comfortable with it, if it's not you, then it's not you.
But I will tell you, it's the number one problem. I mean, when you're working with other people, whether it be branding companies, whatever it is, the number one problem is it's like they think they're smarter than you. You are smarter than me in a lot of things, but you don't know me better than me. I know me better than me. Your job is to find out how that's relatable to other people, and maybe I can learn one or two things. But I know my brand. I know who I am. And again, internally, we've got to get it out there. And so I always find it fascinating that you guys aren't defensive, but so many people are, including me.
No, we hear that from a lot of clients that come in the door, that have had bad experiences in the past, which is really a shame because I hate hearing that from people, and it's not good when people have to go through those things. But I think that
that's fascinating that other people feel the same way. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, they do. But now I'm losing my.
So you're a rock star branding. I didn't know that.
No, yeah.
I did know that.
What an unbelievable.
No, but it's
thing.
true.
Yeah.
It's like even like you and I, our relationship on podcasting.
Yeah.
It's like I interrupt. Sometimes you interrupt me.
Yeah.
Sometimes whatever. It's like I never get defensive. I never think you're. But I never. But dude, 99% of people don't get along because they all have skin in the game and they all think you're taking their skin. So communication. The reason, I think I was saying this the other day, and if you're a Martian and you all of a sudden landed, in this world. Right. And you got a vision of this world real quick. You get on your little green plane, little green Martian ship, and go back to your little green planet and say, those people are crazy. Right. I mean, human beings are crazy. That's true. We're killing each other. We're trying to fight for our little piece of the puzzle. And we're destroying each other. And unfortunately, even in companies, when you're working together, there's a lot of animosity and a lot of defensiveness and a lot of me. And when you find a company that you come to, I remember feeling like I sat here in this seat and I felt home almost instantaneously. Remember I said that?
You did. Thank you. That means a lot to us.
And it was something like I was supposed to shop around, right? I think you guys told me, well, I know you shop around and stuff. I was like, nah, man. Done. Whatever you say. Give me a logo. Give me whatever. What do you want? I don't know. Bring me in. Talk to me. Whatever you want to do. It's like, I'm in. I'm done. Give me my pajamas. Give me my little hat. I'm comfortable. Like, seriously, that's what I felt like. Even in this room, I come back to this room, I have emotions about it because this is kind of where I started to know who I was, and it felt very comfortable. And if you're defensive with a client or you're feeling the client, because you never want to feel stupid. Right. Like, I don't know how to do this.
But building a brand is a team sport. It's not an individual effort. It's a team sport. It takes the whole team in the office. You have to be a huge part of the team. You have to be 100% on board. And all everyone we're trying to communicate with has to be a part of that team too. So I think that's incredibly important. It's not an individual game.
How do you think about branding? I feel like a lot of the conversation we've been having has been very U.S. centric, but certain brands need to communicate to other countries and cultures, but still seem universal, appealing to the country that they originated in. How do you find that balance?
We do a lot of international work, actually, and it's listening and understanding the culture, doing research, and if there's something that you feel like you can't get up to speed on, then you reach out for partnerships, and you work with other people.
Right, the people that really are on the ground in that region.
Exactly,
right.
And so that's another part of that team idea. We really love working as a team. Right. It's much more exciting. We get to learn a lot. We get to know people and work with people. It's great.
Have you ever had a company where they went into another country and they just plopped on their butt and you had to kind of resurrect them because they went in and maybe they stomped over people's, beliefs and feelings and what that country is?
Yeah, I mean, we actually worked with a brand for a while that was out of Europe, out of Germany, that was trying to launch in the U.S., and it was a product for teen girls. And just the way that teen girls think in other parts of the world is they were huge all over the world, but in the U.S., I don't know if the girls were just a little more savvy or a little more, just a different attitude, and they just couldn't relate in North America. So we actually helped reposition them for North America.
Well, if you can figure out teenage girls, please help me because I have 3 of them. Well, 2 of them outgrown teenage, but every teenage boy in the world would like to get that pamphlet.
Yeah, and send it to my teenage boys. All right, so this has been really, really interesting. What are you most excited about in the world of branding and where it's all headed to and the possibilities that you see in the future?
I think I just get most excited about individual projects and specific things. I mean, I'm really excited now about all the efforts around sustainability, and I think there's a whole new kind of attitude surrounding consumption and how much we should make and how much we should use. So that's going to shift everything. It's shifting retail. It's shifting everything. It's shifting brands. I think that's a whole new way of thinking that's really interesting.
The customers overall, I would argue, have become a lot more sophisticated and savvy when it comes to making the choices they're making. How does that change the way that you have to do your business? Because the basics aren't good enough anymore. You have to really dig deeper, I would think, to understand how to truly connect with people today, which is very different than 20 years ago.
Yeah, well, I think our business is 100% around change, and we have to love and embrace change and keep up with everything. So, I mean, you just have to be out there listening constantly and keeping up with all the change. I mean, we have changes in technology in what we do. We have changes in attitudes and trends. So all of that has to be 100% part of what we do every day.
How do you make sure that your ideas don't calcify and that you can continue to be flexible?
It's that whole open-minded approach.
Right.
And I don't think we could have been in this business that long and survived if we weren't.
Right. I'm asking these questions that I know are obvious to you, but I don't think they are necessarily the people that are listening. And I really want to get them to think a little bit right. And when there's this rigidity in thinking that I think that works well for a little while, but could wind up turning against you if you don't recognize it. So how do you recognize when an idea's time has come and gone and it's time to move on?
Well, it's funny. I've had this conversation with a client recently, and I think it's not... it used to be that people would design something, position something, and then sit on it for 10 years and hope that it could last for a long time. And I think those days are over. It's an iterative process. It needs to continue to grow and change continuously because everything around us is growing and changing. So it's not it's like a website. It's a living, breathing thing. So you have to keep it alive. You have to keep it resuscitated all the time.
But then there's also the element of nostalgia that you may need to bring out occasionally depending on the particular type of product and play into that.
And that might be part of the evolution and change because that's what people are looking for now. It's a trend. So it's just this continuous iteration. You
know, and I think it's funny you said nostalgia. I look at Coca-Cola, and I
was thinking about that in my head.
They've upped their game. I'm seeing them everywhere on TV shows, movies, like very subtle. But around Christmas time, I want to see Santa Claus. I want to see that old Coca-Cola Santa Claus, those logos, and matter of fact, the modern version. You may have told me this. I'm not sure, Julie. The modern version of Santa Claus comes out of a Coca-Cola ad.
That's right. Yeah, that's why we all think it's a chubby white guy with a beard.
Right, but if you go back in time, in the original books, it's a skinny guy that looks like he has a heroin addiction.
Right, which probably wouldn't work well when Coca-Cola probably still had cocaine in it.
Or maybe that's where it came from.
Yeah, right.
I should say a cocaine addiction. But one of the things that I struggle with in consulting with businesses, whether it be on my show or in just my regular life, it's that if they come up with a brand or a logo, I just had this on Instant Turnaround, the show that we're doing. It's like the pizza's great, but I walk in and the logo outside doesn't make sense. The sign is too small. The canopy looks like a fine dining restaurant, and it's a pizza place. Right. And so he's great at making pizza, but his whole branding was off, and that's why his company was is not doing well. And what I find a lot is, well, this is what I like. Well, yeah, I do too, but is this the way people want to find me?
Yeah, right. I had a friend that started a business, and this is going back 10, 15 years ago. And he asked me for my advice, and I told him what my advice was. And I felt the logo and font and all of that they chose connoted a completely different type of experience the user was going to get from enjoying the particular product. I thought that was a little too much party. I thought it needed to be more upscale luxury in the context of this product. And he didn't listen to me, and I don't think it went where it could have gone had it gone another way. So how do you caution people against making mistakes when it comes to branding like Anthony just pointed out?
Well, I think you have to get out of your own head. And I think if you're walking in with this preconceived notion, I like this color, I like this, I like that, you may like it all day long, but if it's not the right thing, if it's not the right tool for the job, it's not going to get the job done.
Right. And Glenn, you're over your quota of connoting. Okay. You can't use that word anymore.
Can we use canoodle?
Canoodle. We'll canoodle later. You know, there's a company I know that's really worked hard, like in the trenches for a long time, and really kind of getting to the tops, almost there. And they need some help really focusing their brand and what they stand for. As I point to Glenn. Now I got his attention. He's done such a good job of really He was in the podcast world before people knew what podcasting was, and he is the internal mechanism everybody looks at in the industry for doing Q&As, conventions. Like, he's the guy, right? So everybody knows me outside the hotel business. Like, I'm the, people see me on TV, whatever. It's like, oh, he's the hotel guy. Well, inside, and I've seen it. We walk through convention halls, and it's like, oh, there's the hotel guy, and I think they mean me, and they mean Glenn. It's true, right? Am I right or wrong?
I'm gonna take the fifth.
But what I think is what right now he needs to focus.
Right.
And he's built it. He's
Yes.
done a great job. He's got 5. Like when he says, this podcast, that podcast, your mother's ass podcast. He has so many podcasts. One, I think he should be consulting on podcasting, but he needs, I think, to stop, take a breath, and he needs to rebrand himself a little bit.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So maybe we'll have that conversation offline, and we'll see the results of it.
No, but talk about that.
Yeah. All right.
Let me make you uncomfortable. Go ahead.
No. It's fine to be uncomfortable. I find that the more uncomfortable I am, the more I'm forced to be better at what I do. So I'm happy to be uncomfortable, even though it's uncomfortable, right? Because you're only uncomfortable for a little while until you figure it out, and then you become comfortable. The issue that I'm having is I think I've got a good, strong brand name behind me, but it's, I think, more of a refining process, an evolutionary process. I've gotten so far, and now I'm at the point in my career where I don't know what I don't know, but at least I'm keenly aware of that I don't know certain things, and I know that my talents can only take me so far when it comes to branding and understanding where I am right now. So the one area that I need to focus most on is visual appearance in terms of wardrobing and all of that, and some other little details as well. Would you say that is accurate?
Yes, and I like that fact on his shirt. You know that second button right below the...
I actually got a button today.
Right. You have a button, and I like that because that tells me you care about details. I think, just off the top of my head, is it should be Glenn Haussman podcasting. Like when you do at the end of the show, this podcast, that podcast, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Send them to your website, Glenn Haussman podcasting, Glenn Haussman, Glenn Haussman, Glenn Haussman, Glenn Haussman, Glenn Haussman. I hear, I still don't know the podcast you're talking about. I've heard them 100 times. I think I would brand your name, and by the way, I have podcasting.
Right. I don't know. I never wanted to have my name as my brand. I know you're nodding your head no, because the way I envision NoVacancyNews.com, I really want to create a whole community, and by putting my name on everything, I just felt it was too much me.
I disagree.
I know
with
you're
that.
nodding your head vigorously.
But I'm not the expert.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts?
Well, I mean, I would have to dig in and
Yeah.
Really?
look at it.
I don't know the
I don't think she's not done listening.
I'm not done listening, no. But I can say that it may have shifted over time.
Definitely shifted over time.
How you started and what the intention was then and what it is now might be different.
I'm starting to get very heavily now into creating videos and stuff like that. 2 years ago, I wouldn't have thought about that. But right. So.
Or Glenn Haussman Media.
Right. I don't know.
I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
When we first did Hotel Impossible, it was Hotel Impossible, right? And then there was an introduction, and it would be, "Hi, I'm Anthony Melchiorri," right? So that's where my name came up. But if it was Anthony Melchiorri's Hotel Impossible, instead of being the hotel guy in the airport, I'd be Anthony Melchiorri. Almost, I'd say 5% of the people I meet on a daily basis, if I meet 100 people today that recognize me, 5% know my name,
Right?
And 2% know my full name,
Right.
Like some people will know Anthony. Oh, it's so rare that people say, "Hey, Anthony Melchiorri, how are you?" And if they do, I stop because I know they're a true fan. So
Most of the time they say Anthony Melchiorri.
but they would. But if I had Anthony Melchiorri Hotel Impossible, then my name would be more recognizable. Now my face is recognizable, but it would be more important for my name to be recognizable. If I put my name on the product today, it's like, well, who's Anthony Melchiorri? Samantha Brown, again going back to Samantha Brown. Her name is recognizable because her name has been on every program she's done, basically.
Right.
So that's great that you have No Vacancy with Glenn Haussman. It's great that you have Anthony and Glenn. But I think your brand personally should have either Glenn Haussman Media and people want to know what you're about. They should dig in because no one is remembering the 4 or 5 podcasts that you're doing at the end of the show.
Right.
But they'll remember your name and they'll Google your name. That
is a really good point. And I think it's important to underscore at this point of the conversation that they want to give me good help And you should not be defensive. You need to let your guards down, in particular when people want what is best.
And are you
for
feeling a little like when I was saying that? Do you feel a little defensive?
I don't because I spent a lot of work to not feel that way in these circumstances. 5 years ago, I might have felt a little bit differently, but you're coming from a place of love. And affection for me. So why would I want to turn that around and create something negative when you're trying to add to my positive experience that I've embarked on with this career, right?
Absolutely. It's just a matter of envisioning yourself in that place,
right,
or envisioning yourself where you are now and making that comparison, which is better.
Right. So I think after you're done listening for a while, maybe we do a follow-up podcast and we'll evaluate how my branding has morphed over time.
I think he's trying to get your services for free. I think he's trying.
Sounds good.
Hey. Can I make the Jew joke now? Since I'm a Jew, that would be my dream right there. Everything for free, never have to pay for it.
But now I think you're at the point where you did the work where you have to monetize
right.
it, and we do have advertising on here, and it pays for itself and all that. But I think that I want to know Glenn Haussman name more,
right.
And I think that's important. But anyway, so it's 2 N's and 2 S's. How long did it take me to figure that out?
I don't know. People still can't figure it out. I mean, it's right there in my email.
Well, did you see? I'm not gonna. Somebody spelled your name wrong.
We're not going to say. I saw that today.
I saw it too. I didn't want to correct it.
So, I gave up correcting it.
So we're at this point of the
Glenn
podcast.
Has 2 N's, just so you all know out there.
We're at the point of the podcast where we asked our guests, tell us something we don't know about you.
So we always get that same look from people. It's hysterical. The look of partly confused, partly excited at the potential of saying something fun.
I find people that are more thinkers and listeners have that look.
Yes.
People who are not say full of themselves, but people who are excited, like they just blurt out anything.
Right.
But the people who are thinkers really want to give you a thoughtful answer.
Yeah, we did the Samantha Brown podcast recently, and we asked her that question, and I think she sat for like 45 minutes. Can we stop this recording?
Interesting.
So now that we've stalled a little bit, it's your time to share something.
Something you may not know about me. Probably a lot of people know about me. I'm a real outdoor girl, and I love animals. So I live in New York City. I'm a New York City girl, but not really.
So what kind of animals do you have at home?
I
think I saw a bird cage.
A parrot, yes, and fish, and koi.
Oh, that's perfect apartment pets.
Yes, exactly.
I'm not a big fan of giant dogs in little apartments.
But I grew up. No, I'm not either. But I grew up with giant dogs and horses and every other thing in the world.
Wow.
So.
But talking about travel, ask her about the time she took 37 planes, got dropped off in the middle of nowhere for a week with nothing but a knapsack and a sleeping bag and 6 people.
Wow.
Ask her about that.
That was 2 weeks, Anthony.
That was 2 weeks.
Wow, this sounds like Naked and Afraid.
It was Naked and Afraid.
We went to the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge.
Wow.
It was an amazing trip. There were 6 of us that were friends that went with 2 guides. Dropped off in a small plane, hours from nowhere.
And only Julie made it back.
In the middle of nowhere, in June, where it snowed on our tent, and it was freezing cold, and we were on ice water on rubber rafts for 2 weeks, but we saw the most amazing wildlife. It was spectacular. Spectacular trip. And a place that is so endangered right now with everything that's going on that it's really amazing.
Chinese food delivered out there. I don't.
Well, it wasn't Christmas Day.
No Chinese food.
What I am allowed to have Chinese food at other times around here,
Would you do it again?
What's that?
Would you do it again?
Wow, that's a good one. It was definitely more rugged than what we had in mind. Mm-hmm. The amazing thing is the 6 of us that went are such good friends that none of us had an argument or any issues. We all stuck together and got through the whole thing, and it was amazing. So from that standpoint, I would do it again. And also, it was honestly, I wouldn't trade the experience for anything in the world. It was damn cold.
What did you learn?
So that part I really rather not go through again.
What did you learn most about yourself in that experience?
Just that you can get through anything, pretty much. I mean, it was really rugged. And,
we're not talking the type of thing that I think is rugged.
I said that the best thing about the trip was that I really found out what I was made of.
Wow. That's pretty awesome. So were you happy with what you saw?
Oh, it was amazing.
That's great.
Amazing. And
The
I
first-
hope it stays that way.
Yeah.
The first words out of my mouth when they dropped me off is, "Where's the nearest Four Seasons?"
Well, I can tell you a shower never felt so good. I mean, a hot shower. That
So you
hot
didn't shower for 2
and
weeks?
And Mark let me use the shower first when we got to the hotel, which was really big of him.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, he got sick of the smell.
Exactly. Maybe it was
He's like,
that.
"I don't smell myself, but you." Whoa.
Yeah, maybe it was that. Oh.
But that's interesting. So,
But you
Glenn,
really appreciate things.
Yeah, absolutely. I was in Honduras. I'll tell you something.
Yeah.
Ask
Go
me a
ahead.
question.
Anthony, tell us something about you that we don't know.
I spent 6 months in Honduras, and we
This is
had
in the military, yes?
in the military. I was in the United States Air Force, and I took the officer training test. So, in order to be promoted to lieutenant, which is I was a non-commissioned officer, to become a commissioned officer, I had just graduated from college, and I had to take this test. But in order to take the test, I had to wait a few months, and I was basically I had a 4-year commitment. In order to have a 4-year, in order for me to wait for the test results,
Right.
I had to recommit for another 4 years. And my colonel said to me, "I'll just send you on a temporary duty assignment, TDA." So they sent me to Honduras for 6 months, and it was really friggin' hot.
Mm-hmm.
I was in a hooch. We called it a hooch. My room was so small, I had to go outside to change my mind.
boy.
I literally,
Like a New York City hotel room.
I literally, not kidding. I got off the bed. I had to squeeze my feet between the door, wooden door, that was made of nothing, and I would have to go outside. First of all, I had to put my shoes on. I had to open the door. Okay, and to put my pants on, I had to go out into the hallway. I'm not kidding. It's not a joke. Like, it was a bed
Unbelievable.
surrounded by 4 walls. Okay, no, seriously.
But at
And
least
no-
you had some privacy, right?
and no ceiling.
Oh.
And that's interesting
Yeah, it
because
must
when,
have been
when
great
people
in the
brought
rain.
girls back, we would all get on the ladder. But anyway, that's another story. But talk about survival. The bathroom was outside, and you had to sit there, and you know what the basically the toilet was, how you got rid of your toilet paper? A black garbage bag, nose height next to you, in 115 degrees in Honduras. Yeah.
But you actually had a bathroom.
And you didn't have a bathroom.
No, we did not.
I think it would have been better not to have a bathroom. So really, you just found the closest tree
Dig a hole.
and dig a hole. Wow.
And everything that goes in with you, like toilet paper, comes out. You can't leave anything behind there.
So what do you do with the toilet paper?
We each had our own Ziploc bag.
I am
Excellent.
not interested in that kind of vacation.
and some brown paper bags. So we were able to have a small fire, very, very small fire, to burn a few things each night. But
That's
that
the
was
first
it.
thing you burn.
And no fire to keep warm. You're not allowed to have fire there. No.
Wow.
So you didn't have a fire to keep warm?
No.
So how'd you keep warm?
I mean, well, when we would cook food, we'd have a little warmth from the...
So when you sat there, was there a moment where you say, "Man, it would be really good if I had this right now"? What was it? Like
How many times? Thousands, yeah.
Yeah.
Is there one thing you forgot? They said, "Shit, that could have been so easy if I just brought this."
A
with
couple
me."
more layers of clothes.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think I was wearing 4 or 5. I think I was wearing pretty much everything I brought the entire time.
Wow. No wonder she smelled really good. Imagine if it was really hot there. I smelled it from here.
I know.
So,
Right.
Glenn, tell us something we don't know.
Well, I'm not much of the outdoor rugged type, but
Get out of here.
I know, shocking as it may be, the roughest that I've ever had at outdoors is probably
It's the Holiday Inn
is
Express.
Probably camping during fish festivals every summer. For years, they would do a show. So you drive up to Maine and you pitch a tent and go and hang out and go see some concerts and then
Eat
come
some
back
lobster.
and all that kind of good stuff. But I'm not really very rugged. I've tried that. I don't really like that. I think I stayed in a tent once or twice, and that's really about it. When my kids were in Cub Scouts and we had to do that, every single time a camping trip came on, I suddenly had a business trip and had to get out of town.
You know what? Almost every
Interesting.
Jewish guy I met from Long Island is like you, and every Jewish guy I met from Israel is the
The total opposite. Well, we're the domesticated Jews. We're like a good, good to keep around the house, but we're not really good for anything else. I look at the real Jews, and I'm like, God damn, those are some tough Guys.
The real Jews. Okay, so this comes to the time of the podcast where we say, where can we find you? Selfish plug. Tell us everything where we can find you.
We're Alternatives. We are online at altny.com. You can see our website, and we're on social media. We're here on 29th Street in Chelsea, in New York City, a couple blocks below Penn Station. So.
And, one day it was a big snowstorm. Yeah. One of the first times I was working with them, it was a really bad snowstorm. And I had a meeting with them, but I was going to show up, right? Yeah. I said, maybe a few minutes late, bad snowstorm. They're telling us we shouldn't drive into the city, but I'm coming. And I was like, and they answered the phone at 8 o'clock, or maybe it was earlier, and it was Mark. And I said, Mark, do I have your cell phone? He goes, no, I'm in the office. I go, how'd you get to the office so quickly? He goes, I walked down the stairs. It's like, oh, cool, you live where you work. That's great. Yeah. That's the best. So where can we find you, my friend?
You can find me. I'm at Traveling Glenn online. And, of course, now I got to mention all the podcasts. If you love checking in with Anthony and Glenn, please download our show wherever you get your podcast. Plus, check out No Vacancy with me, Glenn Haussman. Hotel Design Podcast, the Hotel Tech Podcast, the Business of Hotels Podcast. You should be able to remember that one, even though Anthony can't. Download all those shows, like our Facebook page, follow us on LinkedIn and all that good stuff. And Anthony, how can we find you, sir?
I think next time you say, well, I'm Glenn Haussman. You can find me at glennhaussman.com with all my wonderful podcasts. We talk from technology to hotels. Yeah. Come find us.
All right. That's
I like it.
That's
right?
I like that. I like that, too.
Okay, so you can find me anywhere you want to be on the internet at Anthony Hotels.
Excellent. So, let's wrap this up. So, for Julie, Anthony, and myself, Glenn Haussman of the No Vacancy Podcast, thanks for checking in.
It's Checking In with Anthony and Glenn, teaching you to be the hotelier that you wanna be. It's Checking In